Which story do you want us to write? Because we're writing one of them.
Se vislumbra como una de las candidatas al Oscar el próximo año. La cinta Spotlight narra cómo el equipo investigativo del Boston Globe develó en el 2002 la escandalosa verdad sobre los sacerdotes pederastas en la arquidiócesis de Boston. Hoy llegamos hasta las oficinas de dicho periódico para conversar con 3 de los 4 protagonistas reales de esta historia, los periodistas Walter Robinson, Michael Reséndez y Sasha Pfeiffer, que nos cuentan en detalle sobre la histórica investigación que los hizo acreedores a un premio Pulitzer.
Como jefe de esta investigación en el Boston Globe, ¿cuáles fueron tus preocupaciones más grandes y cuáles fueron las trabas más grandes que tuviste que enfrentar?
Our main impediment was we were so used to going after public agencies, public corruption, public, that we could get documents, we could get court records. And in this case, we're going up against an organization that really, even though it's a nonprofit, its tax return is not even public because it's a church. So there were no real public documents. So we had to get people to talk to us. And that was a lot of time in the weeds, pounding on doors, pleading with people, trying to get lawyers to cooperate with us and give us names of priests, trying to confront priests.
En este proceso tuvieron que llevar a la iglesia a corte. ¿Por qué y cuáles fueron los resultados?
Well, we sued the church because there was a civil lawsuit against a priest who had been accused of molesting children, more than 150 children over 30 years in 6 different parishes. And we felt that the public had a right to see those documents. And for that reason, the church, the Boston Globe, used its own attorneys to go to court. And we didn't really sue the church. We filed a motion to lift the confidentiality order, but it's fairly close to the same thing.
And a judge eventually ruled in our favor, which meant that we were given massive amounts of documents that were essentially personnel files for many priests who had been accused of abuse. And that helped make our work bulletproof in a sense, because we were showing people internal church documents that prove that our reporting had been accurate.
Pero si el conseguir las pruebas en contra de la iglesia en la ciudad más católica de Estados Unidos fue todo un desafío, no fue definitivamente lo más duro.
¿Cómo fue la primera vez que empiezan ustedes a escuchar los testimonios de las víctimas?
That was probably the hardest part of this project, is that we spent a lot of time talking to people, usually men, who had something extremely traumatic happen to them, usually when they were adolescents. We talked with men who cried on the telephone, and it reminded us of the tragedy, and I think it made us angry, and I think anger can be a motivator to keep reporting.
Una de las principales personas que los ayudó a ustedes es un ex sacerdote que desertó de la iglesia, y para el momento en que lo contactan ustedes tenía 30 años estudiando este fenómeno de la pedofilia en la iglesia. Él afirma que la pedofilia está ligada al celibato y no a la homosexualidad, como lo dice la Iglesia Católica.
Yeah, Richard Sipe, he appears in the film as an oracle, a sage, a man of wisdom. And that's truly what he was. I mean, Richard had been a priest himself. He led a celibate life for 20 years before he became a psychotherapist and an academic. And what his basic finding is that human beings are sexual. And most people have sex. That's what they do. And most priests are having sex. And he felt the fact that priests, whether they're having sex with women or men or children, they were all doing something wrong in the eyes of church. And therefore, they had an interest in keeping the secret of sex within the church.
Y hay un momento en que él les dice a ustedes, 6% de la arquidiócesis, de la iglesia, son pederastas, y para ustedes era un número increíble, y eso los obliga a ustedes a seguir buscando.
You know, that was a very seminal moment in the film and actually in our investigation. A very big story are all of a sudden onto a story that is unimaginable. 6% of priests, 90 priests, and as you know, eventually it turned out to be almost 250 priests in Boston.
¿Qué pasó con estos 87 sacerdotes pederastas?
Some of them went to prison. John Gagan was murdered in prison after he was sentenced to a 10-year term. And some of those priests are now getting out of prison.
That was a very disturbing part of our reporting, that some priests had essentially been expelled from the priesthood, but then left unmonitored and unsupervised. And so they were living out in the community with potential access to children.
La explosiva revelación en enero del 2002 desencadenó un efecto dominó imparable hasta el día de hoy.
We knew when we were doing our reporting that this wasn't just a Boston problem, even though it was the Boston files that we got. And it's clear now that it was much, much wider than Boston, wider than the U.S.
Una hazaña periodística que definitivamente valía la pena contarse en una extraordinaria cinta. En Boston, Daniela Ganoza, Primer Impacto.